Saturday. Hope y'all are doing well today. I am bringing you some information on the Series I bond, and that's a savings bond issued by the U.S. government, guaranteed return, currently yielding 7.12%. You heard that right. A government bond yielding 7.12%. We'll look at it. We'll dig a little deeper into it. There are some caveats to this, right? But I think looking into the future, if you have some cash that you don't really need, that sounds dumb, don't it? Who doesn't need their cash? But I think you know what I mean. If you have some idle cash sitting on the side that you don't want to expose to the stock market, and you don't want it sitting in a savings account earning 0.01% or whatever it is, these Series I savings bonds may be the trick. So let's dig in. If you're new here, like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff that I say in every single video. Leave me a comment down below, and let's get into it. So Series I savings bonds. What are they? They're a U.S. savings bond. That's a low-risk savings product. During their lifetime, they earn interest and are protected from inflation. That's important because we are, I think, going into inflation. Will they, curtail that back a little bit? I don't know, to be honest with you. So currently, for bonds issued between November 2021 and April 2022, earn an interest rate of 7.12%. Okay, and that interest rate is locked in for 6 months. From the date that your bond is issued, you get that rate for 6 months. You can buy them online. $25 to a minimum purchase. If you want a paper bond, actually they're not doing paper bonds anymore unless you there's a little thing on your tax return every year that you can actually buy savings bonds, and those they will issue you a paper bond, but now it's mainly electronic. Now, the maximum you can purchase per year, this is one of those caveats, is $10,000 per Social Security number. So if you're married, you can buy $20,000 worth of these bonds. With your tax return, that's almost wrong, because you can also do $5,000 with your tax return if you file separately. So you can do another $10,000, so you can almost have up to $30,000 per married couple. Like I said, it's all done online. So what about the interest rate and how that works, right? The I bonds have an annual interest rate derived from a fixed rate and a semi-annual inflation rate. This is important because pretty much right now, rates zero. There's 0% interest. The inflation rate is where you are getting your yield. So interest right now, if any, is added to the bond monthly and is paid when you cash the bond. I bonds are sold at face value, so you pay $50 for a $50 bond. There's no discounts or premiums. Now here's another caveat: redemption. So you have to lock your money up for at least 1 year. You can't touch it for 1 year. You can leave it in there for 30 years or until you cash them out. Now there are early redemption penalties, and that's another caveat. So if you cash it out before 5 years, you forfeit the previous 3 months of interest. So, if you're 6 months into the year, January to June, you'd forfeit June, May, and April, and you just forfeit that interest. But after 5 years, there is no penalty. So you have to lock your money up for a year. Okay, so this is, like I said, this is money that's just, if you have it just sitting there, not earning anything, sitting in a savings account, but you don't need it for emergency fund or bills or anything like that, but you don't want to put it into the market, this is a good way to go. Now, how about taxes? Well, taxes, savings bonds are exempt from taxation from any state or local, except for estate or inheritance taxes. So its interest earnings are subject, though, to federal income tax. So it's just ordinary income on your federal side. On the state side, you don't pay anything. Now, interest earnings may be excluded from federal income tax when used to finance education. So if you have, if you're going to school and you're going to pay for it, that comes out tax-free. So where does the interest come from, right? Right now, they're paying 7.12%. That rate applies for the first 6 months that you own the bond. So an I bond earns interest monthly from the first day of the month in the issue date. The interest accrues. It's added back to the bond. So if you, put a $100 bond in and you get interest of 7%, well, that's annual. But if you get a $10 interest payment, right, now you have a bond worth $110. It's not, that math is not right, but I'm just saying the interest isn't paid to you like a dividend. It's added into the bond, so it's compounding as well. So they earn interest monthly from the first day of the month and the issue date. The interest accrues is added to the bond until the bond reaches 30 years or you cash the bond. Now, we go back to those penalties that if before 5 years you give up the previous 3 months. So when is it compounded? Well, it's compounded semi-annually. Every 6 months from the bond's issue date, all interest the bond has earned in previous months is in the bond's new principal value. Interest is earned on the new principal for the next 6 months. For example, in month 7, interest is earned on the original price plus 6 months of interest. So it's just, you're compounding it. So every 6 months the rate actually changes, but you're earning interest on the interest. That's how it works. In month 13, interest is earned on the original price plus 12 months of interest. However, values displayed by the, let's skip that. If you hold the bond for at least 5 years, when you cash in the bond, you receive all the interest the bond has earned plus the amount you paid for the bond. So that's how that works. You can redeem the bond after 12 months. However, you redeem the bond before it's 5 years old, you lose the last 3 months of interest. So here's the interesting part. How does the Treasury figure the I bond interest rate? The interest on I bonds is a combination of a fixed rate and the inflation rate. So right now it's sitting at 7.12%. So how do they come up with that? Well, the fixed rate right now is 0. So they're issuing bonds 0%. But where you're getting your yield at the moment, or your interest, I should say, is the inflation rate. Unlike the fixed rate, which does not change for the life of the bond, the inflation rate can and usually does change every 6 months. They set the inflation rate every 6 months on the first business day of May and on the first business day of November, based on changes in the seasonally adjusted consumer price index for all urban consumers, for all items, including food and energy. However, The change is applied to your bond every 6 months from the bond's issue date. The dates for these changes may not be May 1st and November 1st, the way they do the, the calculation, how they determine the rate. So if you bought the bond now, it'll change in May, but if you bought it next month, it would change in June, and so forth and so forth. So you're locking in that 6 months at 7%. So that's the inflation rate is really where you're getting this at, okay? Because the fixed rate of the bond is 0. So you'll never get less than 0, but you'll get the fixed rate of the semi-annual inflation rate. I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to make sense of this. So the combined rate, so when they combine those two rates, the fixed rate and the inflation rate, is how they come up with that. So right now the annual inflation rate is at 7%, and that's what you're going to get. But at some point when they raise rates, you might get a fixed rate on the bond plus the inflation rate, if any. Now, this bond, if we have deflation, the bond cannot have negative interest rates. So if the inflation rate is so negative that it would take away more than the fixed rate, we don't let that happen. They stop at 0. So you're getting 7.12%, right? If we have deflation of 7%, your next rate is going to be 0. So you're not going to get any interest payment. But in my opinion, are we going to have a negative 7% deflation, right? Are we going to have it? I don't think so. I really don't think so. So unfortunately, we're not earning a fixed rate of return. We're earning a variable rate return on inflation, based on inflation. That's all you're earning. So in a way, you're kind of banking on inflation, right? If you had deflation, that's going to work against you in investing in one of these Series I bonds. So if you look at historic, like if we can go back to 1998 and we look at the fixed rate back in 1998 for these I bonds, they were sitting at, between 1998 and 2000, you could purchase one of these I bonds with about a 3 to 3.4, 3.5% fixed rate, right, for the life of it. So for 30 years, you were able to get that. But they also got the inflation rate, right? So back in 98, we didn't have very much inflation. There was about 1.5% there. And then in 99, it was, about almost 3%. In 2000, it started to ramp up a little bit, and we got about 3.5% there. So if those people are still holding those bonds, this is what they're earning today, 30 or 22, 23 years later, right? So if it was issued in September of 1998, they're currently earning 10% on their bonds. That's pretty good. November of 98, they're earning 10.5. If they bought them in November of 2000, which was 21 years ago, they're earning 10.64%. So not too bad at all. But, are you going to let the money sit there, right? Especially when you're locking in, if you buy today, you're locking in a 0% fixed interest rate for 30 years, or as long, you don't have to hold it for 30 years, but that bond will never earn a fixed rate, but it will adjust for inflation and pay you based on inflation. So like I said, they're not as liquid, right? Because you have to lock up your money for at least 1 year. But I like them better than CDs, because what does a CD earn you right now? Maybe 1.5% for a year. I don't even know. I haven't even looked. But I know my savings account over at Chase Bank is only going like 0.01%, right? So for me, am I going to buy a bond, Series I bond? I might. I do have some cash sitting around. So the good thing is we have 6 months to decide. You don't have to buy it right now. That this rate of 7.12% is good until April. Was it April? I believe it was April. Yes, through April 2022. So once I file my taxes, I'll know, how much I'm going to pay, how much cash I have left that's sitting around, and if I have enough and I'm comfortable with it, I would probably, put a few $1,000s into a Series I bond, maybe $5,000. And, for a year, at least you're guaranteed a 6 month, 7% yield, and you won't lose any money. That's the good thing. Now, 6 months from after that, during that 1 year lockup period, it can go to zero. And I don't mean the value of it, I mean the rate. It can go to zero. But I would think that inflation is here and it's here to stay for a while. And I think for me, it would be a good way to put some money away and earn some guaranteed interest on idle cash. So those are Series I bonds. I'm going to leave a link down below because you buy it straight from the Treasury if you want to buy these I bonds. It's not traded on a market. It's not traded on the stock exchange. There's no ETF for it. You go straight to the Treasury, TreasuryDirect.gov, and you set up an account, and you can buy your I bonds right there online. So I hope this was helpful. It was a little rough for me because I'm not a bond guy, so excuse my rambling and probably double speak and all that stuff. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Leave me a comment down below if this interests you, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye-bye. I am not a financial advisor. The information contained in this video is for entertainment and informational purposes only. It is not intended to be investment advice. Please seek a licensed professional for any investment, tax, or legal advice. Thank you.